We went for a drive, he and I, further into nowhere towards a trail he said would be widely unoccupied. He said that he didn't want me sharing where exactly it was to anyone in town because he wanted to keep it that way. I hadn't been planning to. I was just along for the ride. So many of our deepest conversations had been in cars for some reason. I remember it was in his first car, the two-toned one with the dark burgundy interior, that we'd first had our conversation about the town and how scared we were to get stuck there. To be truthful, this wasn't the first time that I'd had the conversation, only the first time we'd had the conversation. I had had this conversation multiple times with other friends, and we all pretty much had the same opinion. The asphalt turned to brown gravel. We were still a ways out, contemplating the existential as only seemed appropriate.
One of my friends are of the opinion that intelligent life in the universe hasn't contacted us because we're not grown up enough yet. Since we don't have warp drives and can't leave the solar system, they're like not worried about it. But the second we get a warp drive, we're just gonna get a knock on the door like, "Hello, it's the Intergalactic Congress. Welcome. First of all, there are fucking rules.
That would be so fucking insane.
There are some rules, and we saw what you just did to Earth." That's another theory, is that they haven't reached out to us because they're waiting to see if we can conquer
I can believe that.
parasitic nature.
Yeah.
And if we do, then they'll invite us into the international community. But until then, we're just like on our own, which would make sense. And like for all we know, this is like a natural cycle of life.
Yeah.
Maybe like every civilization goes through this of like, holy fuck, we've acted terribly. Now we need to grow up and fix our shit.
Because honest to God, if we do find a way out of that, that's the most powerful humanity's ever been. If we can find a way to save the planet and terraform and like actually create a sustainable environment, holy fuck, we could do that anywhere. But you have like it's a very big if, and like that's the hurdle that we have to jump on. No, I totally believe that.
That's the only thing that keeps me having any faith in human beings, though, is the fact that we are very, very young as a species.
Right. Yeah.
So when you think about it, it makes sense that we're still acting like shit shows.
Agreed.
It's like in the scheme of things, we're like toddlers.
Agreed. Teleported it.
The gravel turned into dirt,
So that means
and
that
the trees swallowed us whole.
Never met a car on this road, and I hope I never do. Hopefully it's not as bad.
He said that, and I felt my stomach get heavy. He meant for his sake as the driver, but it had a more ominous sound to it the further we drove in,
I mean,
further and further into nowhere, getting deeper into our discussions.
My mom is not watching the news like at all because she's purposely staying away from it because it makes her upset, which I get, but at the same time, like, I need to know what the fuck is going on. Right.
Because you're upset.
So we were sitting watching a movie, mentioned being a pessimist, and I was like, oh, I'm a complete pessimist, like, I just can't. My mom's like, oh, I'm always kind of optimistic, like, I would consider myself an optimist because I try to stay that way. I was like, I try, but like, for the sake of my own mental health, I have this little glimmer of hope that there's a chance that smarter people could be like, look, we need to get our shit together. Like, this is it. We need to get our shit together. And we do that. And, like, all the scientists of the earth find a way to make the technology that we have, that we're working on, and that we're capable of doing work for us so that we can fix this. And I think that that's theoretically possible because we've advanced so much. However, people are fucking idiots. If we could get our shit together enough to be like, look, we have shit to worry about. We just all need to respect each other at this point and try and work on that. Then I think that things would be okay. It's just a question of how to get to that point.
We stopped in front of a gate at the trailhead. We parked in the clearing, grabbed our supplies, and started walking.
Are there any houses closer to the trail or no?
No.
It was at this point I realized I'd forgotten my solar charger, and my phone's battery was hovering in the single digits. Of course. Probably the most picturesque part of the whole trip, too, and I hadn't planned for it very well. We went to 3 different sites on the trail to see which one we wanted to set up at. All were dead quiet and empty. It set in then how far away from everything we were. Each site had a view of the lake, and across the water on all sides was no sign of houses. I also hadn't considered the lily pads being out, but at each site the edge of the water was crowded with them. I kicked myself again for not having prepared better, but if I had taken a video, my phone would have died. We chose the second site out of 3. Whoever had been there previously had left some firewood by the tree line. There was also some burn marks on the trees that looked pretty intentional. We set down our things and decided to make use of the firewood. We started burning a fire in almost complete silence, and it was maybe the most human thing I'd ever done. We'd known how to build a proper fire since we were little. Every part of it was reflexive. Out there, away from the rest of the world, we could communicate even in our own wordless way. He and I didn't need words. Very soon, the fire was self-sufficient. We sat between the fire and the water till the sky had just begun to turn a different shade. Our conversation turned inward, and we talked a lot about both things in the future that made us anxious and the things from the past that had kept us going all this time. Somehow, even though it had only been 3 years since last we'd hung out in person, this felt like the most real moment we'd shared in forever. The reason for this trip had been closure for me, and I think this was another moment of many where I felt like something had been put to rest. The ride back felt like a weight had been lifted, and I was truly thankful to have been able to see that place and spend time with them there. I told the older sister I planned on trying to get a tattoo before I left, at my mom's suggestion, though I struggled to think of what I wanted. I knew. A lily pad. Nothing else could quite encapsulate the trip better for me. It was perfect. I really do think that one of the things that I will remember the most about this trip was the lily pads. If nothing else, I want to remember that.